It's been about 2 weeks since Xenoblade 3 has released, which means I think it is time for a tier list for the classes. If you want to know what the strongest class options and best classes to use in the game are, you have come to the right place. Now, as a disclaimer, since it has only been 2 weeks since release, this will likely be by no means perfect or definitive, but I have tested out and experimented a lot with every class, so I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of how good these classes are. This video will be ranking all the classes, but I will be going in the order of the class list in-game, and saving the 2 post-game classes for the very end because of that, and I will give a warning before we get to those if you are watching this before beating the game. The other classes will be visible at points during this video, which will have the hero icons, so if you are trying to dodge spoilers for any of those, be warned. Oh, and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to support my content, and want to see more guides and useful information about Xenoblade 3, because it really does help out a lot. Let's go ahead and get into this. So I'm separating the classes into 5 tiers here, though mostly 4 since S Plus is reserved for one class in particular, mostly because I do believe that this game is actually fairly well balanced overall compared to something like the Blade system where many blades were just useless in Xenoblade 2. Even the weaker classes in this game still have some value and positive aspects to them and can be useful in the right situations, and as such I don't really believe any classes below C tier in this game, which is a perfectly average rating. Now, relatively of course, the classes in C tier are the weaker classes, but you can use them and still have plenty of success in the game. The first class up is Swordfighter from Noah. Maybe a week ago I would have put this class in B tier, but I'm actually going to be putting this class into A tier, even if it's on the lower end of A tier. While it may not seem like anything special compared to a lot of other attacker classes, it does have a solid mix of traits that allow it to function as a damage dealer that never really has to worry about aggro, and does well against unique monsters and story bosses. Being a Kevis class, it does have some annoying cooldown issues with its best arts, and Edge Thrust and Sword Strike aren't the greatest arts for damage, and even its default talent art isn't the most useful, just offering extra damage to dazed enemies. However, it also has access to Air Slash, and being mostly a physical attacker, it can take advantage of Ultimate Qigong. So a very recent discovery about the game is that Ultimate Qigong seems to work differently than its description. It states that it ignores 50% of an enemy's physical defense. You'd think this would have no effect on low defense enemies and not offer a huge impact in most fights. However, instead of turning a 20% defense into a 10%, it seems to actually lower the defense value by 50 percentage points, which would instead make it negative 30%. Try it yourself and you'll notice a big damage increase on all physical attacks regardless of enemy. This adds a lot of value to physical-based attacker classes, and the Warped White and Warped Black Brooch accessories seem to work the same way, and offer pretty nice damage boosts for physical and ether attacks respectively. Furthermore, Air Slash is a high damage ratio art with a 50% cancel damage ratio bonus, making it one of the hardest hitting arts in the entire game. With the general speed of the art and the fact that Kevis classes can use a Smash Master art, you can do some pretty crazy things since Smash damage is based on total damage of the art, as well as speed of the Smash after launch. This singular feature of Air Slash has let it be used in a few early speed kills for the game, and is very strong. That said, in most general play, it is not as impressive as other attacker classes, and setups like this require huge support from other classes. However, it is still a pretty solid class that you can get a lot of use from. Zephyr is a class I will also be putting into A tier. I feel like Zephyr is the strongest tank class in the game with its short cooldowns and effective damage that allow it to more easily keep aggro than most other tanks, along with its high agility letting it dodge many attacks. Evasion tanking is very useful for keeping aggro since aggro won't deplete if no damage connects, and the guaranteed evasion with the kit lets you guarantee that you can be safe from most dangerous attacks of the enemy no matter what. Even outside of evasion, it has pretty good defense values and a good block rate, making it able to function the occasional times it does get hit. Since Zephyr can very easily fill the talent gauge because of how fast and spammy it is, it can be a great option to consider some stronger talent effects on, like Glittering Melody, Cry of Faith, Blossom Dance, and Deflector Field for the Awakening bonus and Absorption effect, which can be good for a tank. I think this is a strong class and the best class for keeping aggro off attackers and healers in the game. Medic Gunner is a class that I feel is B tier. It's a class with a lot of positive aspects like an attack boost field effect that can stack and last for a long time thanks to its Eternal Formation skill, and it works particularly well when using Ring of Roses as a master art for even more benefits since you can recharge arts of everyone inside the field more quickly. It also has a nice talent art with Healing Ring, and can easily take advantage of the Aquamind stance to help allies even more. It's good at healing and very fast at reviving, but I think it struggles in offering more to a team outside of that. Many other healers can offer more to the team, and usually have an easier time getting their talent art since most healers are Agnes class and thus have a big cooldown advantage on important arts. That said, Medic Gunners get a lot of access to good healer master arts to use, and can provide a lot of utility to a team. It's a decent class that is very serviceable, and in the future, Power Ring could definitely move it up a lot depending on how useful it ends up being. Tactician is a class that I feel is easily on the weaker end in this game, and thus I am placing it in C tier. The class seems designed around wanting to stack debuffs on the enemy, but debuffs are very unreliable, and even using a master skill to increase chance of debuff success it still struggles to do anything to most enemies. The class skills also feel like a lot of random effects without much synergy together, which makes it difficult to get a lot of benefit from the class. However, Hazy Figure is still a nice unique field effect that offers an evasion boost, which can be particularly useful when combined with agility-based tanks, and is still helpful for other characters as well. And it does have a couple decent healing options, even if not the best class for that aspect. Regardless, until there's some new accessory or stronger effect on reducing enemy debuffs, it's difficult to find a ton of use from this class currently. Heavy Guard is also going to be a C-tier class. This class is pretty bad when used by the AI, who will never cancel out of arts, making it always use the slow and long animation, so it will struggle heavily to obtain aggro. It doesn't do all that much damage either, making it feel pretty worthless in most fights as your attackers keep stealing aggro and dying. When player controlled, the class feels a lot better since you can properly art cancel out of the long animations, or dash out of them as well. It is still a defensive behemoth that with the right setup can tank even the strongest hits in the game, but it does still require good healing support, being a phase tank instead of an evasion tank. The art cooldowns aren't super kind, and some arts feel awful to use like Variable Turret, but it's also your earliest access to Topple as well, which can be nice even if the cooldown is miserable. It is a class that can work, but takes a lot more than many other classes. Ogre is the next class and going to be our first S-tier class. This is an amazing class, not necessarily because of the damage, although that is very solid as well thanks to its useful damage boosting skill set, but also because of the fact that as a class, it is by far the best breaker in the entire game thanks to its class skill Fury Smash, increasing reaction success rate by 45 percentage points, which affects break, which is absolutely amazing. It gets a break art as a master art from Yumsmith, and has a very short 11-second cooldown as well. Combined with a break brooch, even the strongest enemies in the game can easily be turned into combo fodder with the appropriate setup and support. It really cannot be overstated how valuable it is to be able to break so easily, because it can enable so many other classes in many ways. Smash damage is also pretty dang broken in this game, so Ogre can help a ton with that as well. Damage-wise, it's no slouch as stated, with some pretty strong arts and a nice stance and maximum voltage to nullify block rate completely, and being a physical class, it can use Ultimate Qigong to hurt enemies a lot as well. This is absolutely a great class, and one worth using in any team composition. Flash Fencer is the next class up. I am going to be placing this class into B tier, but it is the very top of B tier. If this list was just based on what master arts and skills a class could offer, it would be S tier on that alone, but I'm not factoring that into the rating of the class strength itself. Cross Impact is a great art for giving power charge, and Hidden Thorn is a very strong art that can apply the bleed effect to enemies. It even has a solid critical hit rate to take advantage of those critical bonuses. However, in the long run, its damage is a bit lacking compared to a lot of other damage-based classes because of both cooldowns, and the fact that it has less access to strong damage boosts, or the damage boosts are more difficult to come by. All Agnes DPS classes can also run its two best arts as master arts as well. Capable Hands is nice for an instant talent art, and for the first 30 seconds of battle you can deal some strong damage, but afterwards it will struggle a bit more. That said, as a physical class, it can really take advantage of Ultimate Qigong as well, and synergizes great with Eye for weak points to boost critical hit rate up a lot. It can definitely do some solid damage, but I feel like in most situations it is outclassed, and as a crit-based attacker, it is very outclassed by a different class since it offers its critical damage to everyone else as a master skill also, and both of its best arts. War Medic is a class with some of the strongest healing in the game, and honestly not much else, and as such I'm placing it in B tier. Being a very strong pure healer in this game honestly isn't even that bad, but I do think there is a later class that's actually even better in this department, and can offer more, which doesn't help War Medic that much. Now, being a Kev's class, it can get Agnes Master Arts, including the really funny Oriole and Resonant Flag combination, but it won't take advantage of this nearly as well as Signifer, and won't get other Master Art options it may like to have. Still, for its strength at keeping everyone alive with very strong heals and ability to cleanse debuffs in certain fights, it might be beneficial. Along with a decent defense up field effect, it's a decent class that can be useful to bring along to fights if you're having trouble living. Guardian Commander is also a B-rank class, and in many ways I feel like this class is just a straight upgrade from Heavy Guard. Its defenses may not be quite as high, but it has potential for a lot more damage and can keep aggro easier, especially with the Awakening bonus from its talent art and bonus damage on arts when awakened. That said, the class still isn't the strongest around and has a fairly low crit rate and will still likely need to be player controlled to obtain aggro. It does have some great class skills for a tank and can even take damage for allies along with getting a boost to damage reduction when blocking, which is helpful when you can reach a block rate of over 90%. This class won't be dying very often, and even on hard mode, enemies will have a tough time cracking it thanks to the solid damage and good defensive abilities. Thaumaturge is a class I'm going to put into C tier. This class is pretty interesting in concept, and it's actually the class that has the Ultimate Qigong skill. It's supposed to be a healer and physical attacker hybrid, but it ends up being underwhelming in both aspects thanks to the actual rolls, and honestly the healing it does have is so weak you could probably just replace it with another attacker and just lose basically nothing. An area of effect attack boost is nice, but you can get that from other sources, and its actual healing ability outside of executing burst, which can only be done with his talent art, is pretty weak compared to basically every other healer class in the game. Its party support isn't much, and its damage isn't really enough to make up for that with the lower strength values and not having the greatest arts. Fun concept at the very least. Yumsmith is an interesting class. Its actual class skills are very underwhelming, but it has some pretty decent arts like an 11-second break, and the stats ability Determination to get a nice boost to damage when inside a field effect. I'm personally placing it in B tier, but at the bottom of B tier. The field damage it has, that 2 skills are based on, can only really be used with 1 art, and the damage from that art is extremely underwhelming, but it is nice to fish for breaks and have some strong aspects like having an art with a nice damage boost from the front. It also has a cool effect of filling the chain attack meter faster when using an art, and could use fast cooldown Agnes arts to boost that up faster if you want to chain attack quicker or more often. Not a bad class at all, but difficult to find a ton of use with in most situations, and it's definitely weaker in the damage department than most attacker classes. When I first started playing this game, I thought Full Metal Jaguar was an amazing class, and honestly in the early and mid game it absolutely is. But now I feel like it's lacking a bit, and I will be placing it in A tier. Near the top of A tier, but A tier nonetheless. While it has the second highest damage boosting skill in the game, able to reach 255%, it also relies on never missing attacks, and while you can't miss attacks and chain attacks, outside of that, it's very easy for one stray bullet not to hit the mark. It's also entirely ether-based, so it cannot take advantage of the really large damage boost of Ultimate Qigong, making it actually do less damage than many physical classes. That said, it still has really nice damage output, and an amazing buff that increases accuracy and removes all aggro from you, meaning you can go crazy with arts, then use this and not have to worry about aggro at all. It's very good at bursting its damage when an enemy is using arts as well, since it gets a bonus 100% damage while an enemy is using arts, and in chain attacks it's still a heavy hitter when ether defense gets lowered. It also has some great artifacts and positionals it can take advantage of to charge up talent gauge faster than basically any other attacker class. A pretty solid class with high damage potential and can be extremely safe compared to other attacker classes. Strategos, or Strategos, I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm going to say Strategos, is an interesting class that I am placing near the top of B tier. Strategos gets a lot of bonuses based on buffs placed on allies, including a nice damage boost of up to 200%, and will also extend the duration of buffs with its default skills. It also has decent healing and can inflict physical defense down, and can get its damage boost faster using the Cry of Faith talent art. The attack boost at battle start can also be nice for faster kills against weaker enemies, and overall it can offer a lot of benefits to the team with its more unique qualities. Bind in particular can be extremely strong as an effect on enemies that won't resist it, and overall it is very solid as a support class that can manage to do some solid damage better than almost any other healer class thanks to its unique properties. This honestly feels like a better hybrid class for damage than Thaumaturge, but it also has better healing, even if not the greatest healing, and offers good buff effects for the party. Unfortunately, it can't get access to Oriole and Resonant Flag, but a good class nonetheless. Stalker is one of the weakest attacker classes in the game, and as such I am placing it in C tier. It feels like it has a lot of conflicting aspects, like wanting to attack from behind for certain damage boosting abilities, but its strongest art gets a bonus from attacking from the side instead for some reason. It also really relies on bleed to do a lot of damage since it gets a big increase from attacking enemies that are bleeding, but strong unique monsters really like resisting bleed, making the damage underwhelming more often than not. Sometimes it can hit hard in the right circumstances, but its art also feels slow, and art follow-up seems to not be a very strong effect from what I can tell, so I think this class struggles a lot compared to most attacker classes, and is one that could also benefit from an easier way to apply debuffs. Being ether-based also does not help, since it can't use Ultimate Qigong. It does get a bonus from attacking enemies below 30% health, but the remaining 70% of the time it will struggle heavily with damage. All around a class that desperately wants a buff of some kind. Lone Exile is probably the second best tank class in the game, and as such I will be placing it at the bottom of A tier. Lone Exile feels a bit like a hybrid of an agility tank and an offensive-oriented unit, having some very strong damage thanks to its strong arts and very powerful and short cooldown talent art of Blossom Dance. Now because it's a Kevis class, I actually think it does a bit less damage over time compared to Zephyr since art cooldowns are not as fast, and its evasion is not as high, but it's still a very good class that does a bit more in chain attacks, and gives access to launch on a normal art, which is extremely nice. I think this class is a solid option in many situations, and will function very well as a tank in most party setups. It is the easiest tank to kill of all of them, but it still does a fine job, and if built right, that should not be a major issue. Incursor is a very, very strong damage-oriented class. I am placing it in S tier. I'm sure this was very easy to see coming, just knowing how powerful critical damage can be as an independent multiplier for damage. It has a very high critical hit rate that can easily hit 100% over the course of a fight, thanks to Eye for weak points increasing critical rate, and it also gets stronger with every single critical hit up to 150% bonus damage. It gets a ton of benefit from critical damage, letting it hit some of the highest damage in the game, and even comes with an evasion art for when you inevitably take aggro. Being able to hit such high damage numbers even outside of chain attack, having fairly low cooldowns, and being able to take advantage of ultimate Qigong and strong master arts like Cross Impact for Power Charge and Hidden Thorn, make it a very strong class, and one worth using in many situations for its high damage potential and really strong chain attacks. Lost Vanguard is a tank class that feels a bit underwhelming in many aspects. I'm going to be placing it in C tier because I just don't think it reaches the potential of the three above it, and only feels slightly better than Heavy Guard. Now, it is an Agnes class and has access to a Smash art which can do a lot of damage, which is one of the best strategies to use with this class to keep aggro, and not have too many issues. But it also has 2 damage arts total, both of which are not amazing damage ratios, and its other 3 arts, while okay, don't really drastically help too much, though Electrofield at least helps out allies with a nice barrier. Using Soaring Tempest as a master art can give you your own launch access, and Deflector Field can be a good talent art to consider here as well. The default skills for the class are honestly pretty bad overall, probably the worst of the tanks, not offering too much benefit compared to other better tank options. That said, Smash is still great, and there are some decent aspects to the class, and you can still have success when using it. It's just fairly underwhelming compared to other tank classes. Signifer, S+, strongest class in the game. I went into length about how broken this class is in my video yesterday, but just as a quick summary, Signifer can stack buffs like crazy, the entire team can just be rocking a ton of buffs, and it has very easy time filling talent gauge for either more buffs or the ability to freeze all buffs. It also can infinitely pass Power Charge with the right setup, and even invincibility with a likely unintended strategy. You can overwhelm enemies with buffs incredibly easily, and have a very easy time in basically any fight. It is the ultimate enabler of everything else in the game, and the best support this series has ever had. This is absolutely an excellent class, and one that should basically be on every single team. Speaking of strong classes, we have Soulhacker. Now, Soulhacker is actually very weak in your normal in-game playthrough, so this is like the one time I'm only really talking about post-game strength, but Soulhacker is very good. Top of S tier and probably the second best class in the game in my opinion. Soulhacker has unmatched versatility, and when you've killed all unique monsters, you can get a massive bonus to either your attack, defense, or healing, making it one of the best classes in all 3 options. Now, all of its skills come from enemies, so it unfortunately cannot get any defense penetration stuff from Ultimate Qigong, but it still has arts with the highest damage ratios in the game, and a lot of incredible supportive options like Area of Effect Power Charge, critical damage boosts, attack boosts, and can even be one of the most unkillable tanks or one of the strongest pure healers as well. I don't know if it has the strongest damage total anymore, but it definitely has the strongest burst damage, and can hit some crazy numbers in chain attacks. It also has access to every single combo and can function in any role you need it to on a team, and can even extend duration of combo effects with a nice skill it has access to. Soulhacker can do anything you want it to, and as such, it is an amazing and versatile class. Martial Artist is a pretty strong damage class that I am putting in A tier. It has one of the easiest to reach caps for a damage skill, needing only 8 cancels to get a 150% attack boost, which makes it hit very hard, very fast, and stack up a high multiplier very early on in a fight. And it also has a great critical hit rate and can recharge its own arts fairly quickly as well. It can hit very fast with auto attacks and use its talent art to hit some absurd damage even outside of chain attack, and it's definitely able to compete damage-wise. Being a physical class, it can even take advantage of Ultimate Qigong as well. Now, it doesn't hit as hard as some of the other classes, and it can be difficult not to take aggro if you're trying to stack up cancels early in a fight, since you can't exactly play safe and do that at the same time, making it a fairly risky option, and its talent art will deplete all currently charged art, making it not have the greatest synergy overall. Outside of its 150% damage boost, it doesn't really get anything else either, so it is hard to place it higher than this. Troubadour is the second best healing class in the entire game, and an easy choice for S tier. It automatically comes with an incredible party support ability to increase accuracy and evasion for the party. It can massively increase art recharge for the party, and also restore all arts to full length whenever with its talent art, along with freezing buff duration, which is extremely good. It also refills its own arts fully when an ally dies, which means you can revive and have access to those, and it will refill all ally arts when it dies, meaning getting aggro and dying isn't the worst thing in the world if there is another healer able to revive you. It has strong area of effect art recharge effects that can stack, and it gets more uses of arts itself with its 12% chance to restore arts whenever they are used, which does stack with Not Punch Trap too, making it one of the most art spammy classes out there, so it can even keep up in healing potential despite having less healing options than many other healing classes. Allies can spam arts more, you can spam arts more, it's a great class for efficiency in combat, and very helpful for classes that have longer cooldowns on their arts. I consider this class extremely strong, and it and Signifer are usually the 1-2 healer setup I like running in most situations. Seraph is the biggest glass cannon in the entire game. The damage potential of this class is higher than any other, and for that alone is an S tier class, though at the bottom. It is a very risky class that can die very easily due to many of its arts lowering its health, and its skills actively wanting it to take damage. Inferno Dance has a very high damage multiplier of 500% though, and that can apply Blaze, which also ticks for a strong damage over time effect, even in chain attacks. And it gets power charge from cross impact as well. Leveling Fire gives it another crazy attack boost, and if you take over 25% of your health and damage, you get Awakening, making your arts hurt even more, and Awakening can be infinitely extended if you have a Glittering Melody user on your team. Damage is all well and good, but you can't use damage if you die, and this class can be a huge aggro hog and put itself into danger a lot. It's a class you have to temper and unload with at specific moments, and outside of chains, it appreciates burst support. Inside of chains, go crazy though and destroy things with a boosted Inferno Dance and Hidden Thorn. It even gives you a Toppler if you really want that. For pure damage, there's not much better, and I feel this class has a lot of potential to be strong in many situations when trying to do as much damage as possible. Hitting impressive numbers outside of chain attacks is no joke either. Machine Assassin is unfortunately a very underwhelming and weak class as it is right now, being debuff focused to do basically all of its damage. As such, it has to go in C tier near the bottom, unfortunately. Unlike buffs, which you can easily apply and stack quickly, debuffs can be resisted. And not just occasionally, all the time, even if you run the skill to reduce resistance. Even your art that is supposed to lower debuff resistance of enemies can be resisted when that should be the one thing that cannot be resisted. The few times it doesn't, that's great, but it happens a lot more often than not. The art cooldowns are also enormous for your most important arts, with your one random debuff art being on a 24-second cooldown. And there aren't great debuff options for master arts either, meaning that you can't exactly quickly stack debuffs, and the only way to freeze timer is Taiad Zoroboros. As it stands right now, this class has a lot of problems and really needs to be able to apply debuffs easier and more quickly, otherwise it feels very weak and not worth using at all. Sagiri's based though. Alright, here's your spoiler warning before the final two classes. If you do not wish to be spoiled about post-game classes, click off of this video right now. Okay then, let's talk about Life Sage. Now the game itself will tell you it's the strongest healer class in the game. This is a lie, and not even just because of Signifer. I think Troubadour is better as well. Now it seems like they tried to make it the strongest healer based on pure healing, at least because your party will never die with a properly set up Life Sage in the party, and Life Sage even has Aquamind to help with art cooldowns as well. It's supposed to have strong damage, but don't expect too much out of this class, as I think it's probably better just to focus on healing and keeping everyone basically as healthy as possible. I'm putting this class into A tier because it's definitely a good healer class, but it isn't absurdly broken and doesn't offer the same level of party support as Signifer and Troubadour. But trust me, it is very hard to die at all with this class, and it also has the great bonus of reducing party damage taken. This class is also why War Medic is basically useless post-game because Life Sage completely outclasses it as a pure healer and has more support and damage also. And finally, we have Royal Summoner. Not going to lie, I honestly feel like this class is very underwhelming and I feel like it is B tier. It technically has the strongest possible damage boost in the game, getting a 40% increase every time you use Elemental Discharge up to 400%, but this stacks very slowly, and the elemental damage feels very unimpressive. It doesn't help that it's ether-based, so you can't use Ultimate Qigong for a boost likely larger than its own damage boost, and it doesn't really offer a ton of insane versatility to a team. It can have some strong damage, but there are just simply better options for that, and even Power Effect is more likely to just get you killed than contribute much. Maybe I'm just using the class wrong, but I have not been very impressed with the class. That said, it's still a decent class, and one you can easily run and have a lot of success with. Maybe the elemental buffs do more than I think they do, though, and I could be entirely wrong about this class. But unfortunately, as of now, I think you're better off picking a different DPS that can do more damage and be more versatile. So, the list is now complete. Here's the full picture, and tiers are ordered as best I can, but I think classes could be considered pretty close within tiers. There really isn't any completely useless classes in this game like some Blades in Xenoblade 2, as everything can have a place and be worth using. My only real advice for team setup is if you want to have the most success, run a Signifer and run an Ogre with Break Brooch and the Break Master art. You will not be disappointed with the results. I am not sure what else to say, so let me know if you agree with my rankings or if you think I'm stupid in the comments below. If you did make it this far, I do want to thank you for watching this video, and I do hope you learned something from watching. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like, and comment to help me out. And please look forward to all of the class guides I have not yet made on some of these strong classes, and other guide projects I have planned for the game. With all that said, thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful and blessed day.